In the beginning, there was lava. Lava covered the surface of the earth and cooled. It formed the foundation of what is now this treasured state park. Over hundreds of millions of years, the lava rock broke down and soil was formed. Trees grew, rivers flowed, and waterfalls were born. The most spectacular of these waterfalls became known as Burney Falls. Burney Falls is located in MacArthur-Burney Falls Memorial State Park. It's part of the Cascade Range of mountains, nestled in northeastern California. These mountains begin north of California's Sierra Nevada mountains. Contrary to some local belief, the lava in the northern Cascade region did not come from violent explosions of Mount Shasta or Mount Lassen, but it came from lava that oozed up from the cracks in the earth. The water flowing over Burney Falls travels through this fractured rock to this very day. Native American Indians lived in this area for centuries before the first European explorers arrived. Starting around 1820, fur trappers, explorers, and a few settlers passed by the falls. For decades, though, this area was just too rugged and isolated for all but the hardiest adventurers and local inhabitants. When gold was discovered in California in 1848, more and more people started getting out into the less populated areas. In 1858, a drifter from South Carolina named Samuel Burney came to this area. However, he was only here a short time before he was killed by local Indians. People referred to the mountain, town, and falls as the place where Sam Burney was killed. These landmarks bear his name to this day. Around the turn of the 20th century, Burney Falls was still known and admired by few people. President Theodore Roosevelt passed through this area in 1903 on a campaign stop to Oregon. He later remarked in a book that the falls were a wonder. Time and folklore expanded Teddy's comments to describe the falls as the eighth wonder of the world. Between 1900 and 1920, the Mount Shasta Power and Water Company and Pacific Gas and Electric Company, PG&E, began to purchase property along the Pitt River to build dams and power stations. Local ranchers Frank and Scott MacArthur lived in the area and enjoyed visiting Burney Falls. When the power company dammed the Fall River and ruined the Fall River Falls, the MacArthurs worried that Burney Falls would be next. So, in 1920, they pooled their money and bought the 160 acres surrounding Burney Falls with the intent to preserve it. The MacArthurs wanted to give this land to the people of California as a memorial to their parents, John and Catherine. The state, however, had no mechanism to accept gifts of land, and they had no agency to manage it. It took Frank MacArthur 3 trips to Sacramento over a 2-year period before the state finally accepted it. The state did not know what to do with this wonderful gift, so they did nothing with it for years. In 1924, a terrible forest fire swept through the area and devastated the land around Burney Falls. The following year, the Division of Forestry hired Jack Allen to live and work at MacArthur Memorial Park as the first park custodian. His job was to clean up after the fire and greet the occasional visitor. The 1920s brought explosive change to the park. There was a dramatic increase in visitation because cars had finally become more reliable. PG&E was still developing hydroelectric power plants on the Pitt River, and they completed the dam on Lake Britain in 1925. Thankfully, though, the water could not back onto land surrounding Burney Falls. The MacArthurs had saved the falls, and not a moment too soon. In 1928, California voters overwhelmingly passed a bond that created the Department of Parks and Recreation, then called the Division of Beaches and Parks. The MacArthur's Memorial Park had its name changed to MacArthur-Burney Falls Memorial State Park to denote its geographic location. Mr. Allen's title was changed from custodian to warden, and he stayed on for 12 years. This position later evolved into today's California State Park Ranger. With the 1930s came the Great Depression. The economy was in bad shape, and visitation at Burney Falls plummeted. But that was about to change. In 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt created the Civilian Conservation Corps as a work relief program for young men from unemployed families. The CCCs came to MacArthur-Burney Falls in 1934 and worked for 2 years building a new campground and the first trail to the base of the falls. They built the historic Rim Campground, which is still in use today as a picnic area. The beautiful Diablo fireplaces built out of native lava rock are still standing. The bridge on State Highway 89 was completed late in the 1930s. The economy was turning around, and MacArthur-Burney Falls Memorial State Park was once again a booming park. Camping, hiking, and picnicking continued to increase in popularity until World War II broke out. Visitation dropped again until the end of the war. Interest was renewed in the 1950s and 60s, and the park was expanded. The new Pioneer Campground was built in 1964, more than doubling the number of campsites from 62 to its current number of 128. As you have seen, MacArthur-Burney Falls Memorial State Park has had a rich history. But we're still growing. Most recently, we've added several new restrooms, a new camp store, and a popular campfire center. Of course, all of this is here because of the main attraction. So let's now take a guided tour of MacArthur-Burney Falls.
Welcome to MacArthur-Burney Falls Memorial State Park. You've just learned about the history of the park. I'd like to share with you the geology, the hydrology, the flora, and the fauna. Hi, I'm California State Park Ranger Andrew Early. I invite you to use this information as an on-site discovery. Join me on the Falls Loop Trail. The trail that we're on was built in 1934 by the Civilian Conservation Corps. This Falls Loop Trail is traveled by millions of visitors every year. As we walk down to the base of the falls, the temperature will drop 15 to 20 degrees. And on a warm summer day when the temperatures are reaching 100 degrees, it's a nice place to be. MacArthur-Burney Falls State Park is at 3,000 foot elevation. In northeastern California, this elevation gives us a beautiful mix of plants, including a coniferous forest, mixed hardwoods, and a chaparral plant community. So if you look around, the prominent plants that you see, the trees particularly, down in the canyon are the Douglas firs. We have ponderosa pines that are probably the most common tree in the park. And then right intermixed in all this is the chaparral plants, including the manzanita and the deer brush. Wildlife is abundant in this area. In the park, you'll find mammals like deer, bobcat, foxes, skunks, raccoons. Down by the river, you'll find river otters. And then outside the park, you'll find even the larger mammals, including black bears, mountain lions, sometimes elk. Beautiful birds of prey are found in and around Burney Falls, including our national symbol, the bald eagle. There are 7 nesting pairs that we know of on Lake Britain. There are also osprey that nest in the area, and at Burney Falls, the black swift makes its nest behind the waterfall. It's the uniqueness and the beauty of the falls themselves that draw the visitors to this park. Summer is the most popular time to visit, between May and September. It's a beautiful time to come and visit the park. Burney Falls is really 2 waterfalls in one. The water coming over the top of the falls is the present-day Burney Creek. You can trace that back 25 miles to its headwaters during the winter, a half a mile during the summer when the stream water dries up. The water coming out of the middle of the falls is the historic riverbed and the historic flow of Burney Creek. It's coming through the fractured lava rock. Burney Creek flows down into Lake Britain, which is a damming of the Pitt River. From there it flows down into the Sacramento River, travels down to the center part of the state to the Delta, goes out to the Pacific Ocean under the Golden Gate Bridge. Along the streams you'll find the water-loving plants, including the flowering dogwoods, the maples, the alders, and the willows. The streams are alive with trout, including native rainbows, eastern brooks, and German browns. The lakes support numerous warm water fishes. We've just walked down from the base of the falls. We're at the Rainbow Bridge, and you have a couple of options for trails. You can continue on down the trail to the lake. There's a beautiful swim beach, picnic areas. Or we can cross over the Rainbow Bridge, go down the creek on the other side to the historic fish hatchery. Or we can make a quick jog to the left, back on the falls loop and around to the top of the falls. The park is open year-round, but the most popular time to visit is the summer period from May to September. The days are warm with an average temperature of 90 degrees, and the nights cool down into the 40s and 50s. There are 104 campsites, 24 primitive cabins, hundreds of day-use picnic sites, Lake Britain access, a boat launch ramp, and a developed swim beach. Additionally, there is a pioneer cemetery, a small visitor center, a general store, and numerous fishing access points. Additional information is available through ranger-led interpretive programs and informational displays. Today, MacArthur-Burney Falls Memorial State Park is still a popular destination campground. Our campsites are booked virtually every night of the summer. Now, there will always be ups and downs in the economy. Visitation will change slightly, but thanks to the foresight and generosity of Frank and Scott MacArthur, the future looks bright for MacArthur-Burney Falls. We'll be here for the future.
While there's a lot to see and do within the park, if you have a little extra time, there are plenty of additional places to see and enjoy within just a short drive. Here's a brief look at some of our favorites.